the Light and Life podcast, conversations on faith and life in downtown Colorado Springs. Today, I'm so excited to welcome back lead pastor Tim McConnell from his sabbatical.
Liza, it's so awesome to be back. It's I was gone for 12 weeks, which was a huge gift, and you did an awesome job. I loved listening to the Light and Life podcast.
Oh, thank you. We missed you.
Yeah, it felt like we need to do that, you know? It was great to have staff come in and share their heart, and I loved hearing those. I was moved to tears by some of them, and the passion, and
it was super great to talk to them and learn more about what's going on inside and outside of the church. Tell us a little bit about your sabbatical.
Well, I mean, I think it was great to be on rest, and I know that Pastor Jennifer talked about sabbatical and rest and Sabbath, and it's just it's an amazing gift. I've never done that before. I've been in ministry for 24 years. I've never taken that long of a break, and God did a lot in that. We could talk about that sometime, like just how God met me at different levels that I didn't expect as I was rested and just focused on Him in different stages that I went through in the sabbatical. But honestly, there was a lot of fun too. Like there were things that were just highlights of time with family.
Yeah, and you went to the UK.
Yeah, we went to the UK. We lived in Oxford when Ellie and Jack were kids, but Peter and Liam had never been there. So we took a family trip to the UK. Saw a bunch of, Oxford and London, and went to Hamilton in London.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
So like when the king comes out and he's such a goofball, and all the Londoners, were reacting to that, freaking out, and it was awesome. But yeah, some highlights. I think the funnest thing we did was went to Stonehenge. When we lived there, Abigail went to Stonehenge with her parents while I was doing school. Like I was doing a master's at Oxford.
Sure.
So I couldn't go. And so they went without me, and they didn't tell me they were going to go. They came back and said, we went to Stonehenge. You went to Stonehenge? I wanted to go to Stonehenge. And they said, well, we'll go back. Abigail said, we'll go back. We never went back. So
Dang.
I have held it over her.
For years.
For 20-something years that she withheld Stonehenge from me. And,
was it everything you believed it to be?
I don't know if everybody has this much fun at Stonehenge.
Okay.
But we got into making pictures as if like we were holding Stonehenge.
That's awesome.
Or jumping and having Stonehenge under us, or leaning against Stonehenge. And then what was really cool was like all the other people that were there, nobody was doing that until we started doing it. And then all the other people there said, I want to do that. So it's like German families coming up to us, and the Japanese
asking
families.
You how to do it.
Yeah, like, do that for us. And like, it's not that hard. But we just had such a fun time.
That's so awesome.
It was cool.
We're so glad to have you back, though. And at church, we've just now started a big fall series called Lead Me Home. Quick question, what inspired
What are we doing?
Series? Yeah,
right. Why? So that's what we're going to talk about today is this whole idea of lead me home. Like what is this about? And, in my pastoral rhythm and leading the church, I like to take the fall and just in one way or another in this big series in the fall, I like to try to retrain us in how we tell the gospel story, the whole story, like from creation, how, God made us, how we fell away from God, the fall, God's plan of salvation in Jesus, how we're reconciled to Him, and then how it all winds up in the end, the whole story. So we're going from Genesis all the way to Revelation. But the thing is that, like the story that we tell, it kind of gets, I think people get, I don't know if they get sick of it or it's just like they've heard it before. They feel like they've heard it before. People, non-Christians. Like we want to be light and life for the city. Our mission is to show the city Jesus and to tell the story of the gospel, because we believe the gospel will change everything. But it doesn't always feel relevant to them. So I always want the church to find new ways of telling that story. Like a new way to the gospel in a new frame. So lead me home is just this idea that like I think we all want to get home. We all need home. And And we need that fresh language, a fresh way to look at it.
Yeah, I'm super excited to dig into it. I know I listened to one of your sermons, and I think just walking through, I mean, we started in Genesis, but walking through the steps of the fall and how it incorporated blame, and it did bring something that seemed so irrelevant into a new light for me, because I am a believer, but I've heard this my whole life. Yeah. And I'm imagining people who aren't believers who have heard the story of Adam and Eve, but are kind of like, yeah, right, whatever.
Right.
They don't dig into it and explore what it means for them in a world that they live in today.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to learn more about this.
Like they've heard enough of it to say, doesn't apply to me, doesn't pertain to me. I'm disqualified from that story in one way or another, or it's disqualified from me. Or honestly, a lot of people haven't heard it. Like, interestingly, Peter, my son, is in high school, and he was telling me that right when we were studying Genesis at the beginning of the series, his high school, he was reading Genesis and creation stories for language arts.
Oh, wow.
And
okay.
he recognized that a lot of people in the room, they were reading the story of Adam and Eve, and they'd never heard of it before. So we're increasingly in a place where people haven't heard it. But the other thing is that as Christians, we often get into this rhythm of telling the story. Like, we get into a situation where, okay, someone needs to hear the gospel now, so I'm just going to kind of download like that kind of map of salvation that I learned as a kid, and we can wind up telling a story that makes God out to be angry with us. Like, God made us, we messed up, we're bad, God is mad, and the only way we're going to get home is sort of cowering in the dust before Him or something. I mean, we just don't tell it carefully, so people get turned off by the way we share the good news. And if people hear what we're saying and it doesn't sound like good news, I always say that's not on them, that's on us, because this is good news. So this is God's good news. So we need to learn how to say it in a way that it's going to hit with people's heart. And so it's a rehearsal of the whole story again.
Yeah, I think when you say it's good news, tell it like you believe it, like you believe that it's good. Yeah. I remember I used to serve tables at a restaurant, and I served there for 6 years. And I remember I worked on a Sunday, and as one of my tips, I received a pamphlet that was the $1 million question of, are you going to heaven or are you going to hell?
Do you know where you're going after you die? Yeah, something like that.
Right. And I specifically remember, they spent hundreds of dollars, and I got this pamphlet as my tip. Come on.
So you're saying there was no...
The reason I'm not at church
monetary
is to
reward.
serve people who are coming after church. And I'm so sorry I didn't go to church, that specific Sunday. Yeah. But I do have a very real picture of what it was like that day to have other servers on my team have a similar experience.
Right.
And they looked at me and they're like, you're a Christian. Is this what you do at restaurants? Is this how you treat people?
Wow.
And so it was more of a fear tactic, the $1 million question.
Yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't this is good news, celebrate, rejoice. Jesus loves you. Yeah. It was
it's like, watch out.
Watch out. And also, I'm not tipping you.
And also, you weren't in church. And also, I'm not going to give you an actual tip.
Right.
Yeah. So here's some pro tips on being a good Christian evangelist. It's
don't do that.
Don't do that.
Maybe don't do that.
Maybe leave a really remarkable tip.
Sure.
And then some kind of a blessing or an entry point to a conversation about Jesus. Yeah. But we're just ham-handed with this as Christians in so many different ways. We're not connecting with what people really need to hear, where their heart is. And we tell it, like you're saying, we tell it in a way that, the way you're telling me this story, I'm not sure you believe it. Right. It's like you're throwing me this information that you're obviously downloading in the back of your brain from somebody else. And, we've got to find ways to speak from the heart. Mm-hmm. So my favorite thing about this series is that we've determined I got back and kind of dropped this on the staff, but the staff jumped on it, that we determined to create these GNIs, these good news initiatives, these little statements that people can carry away, and just a little way to start a spiritual conversation that maybe you'd never tried before, like a different way to talk about it. So things like the Creator sure made things beautiful. Like if you just say that today, you're just opening the door, like you're just opening the gate a little bit that you believe in a Creator. Mm-hmm. So you're going to be ready to like, oh, what do you mean? We're ready to have that follow-on conversation or something. Mm-hmm. Or things like there's something wrong with the world. Like that's one of them. And just like everybody believes that. Like everybody understands there's something wrong with the world.
These opening statements.
Yeah. But you got to be brave a little bit. But we need to be honest. You know, I always say, if you ask me what the method of evangelism that I teach our church, the method of evangelism that's most effective is be a friend. Mm-hmm. Be a friend. And once you're a friend and you really care about them and they know that, then you can open your heart. And when you open your heart, they'll see Jesus.
Yeah. I think something I personally struggle with in evangelism in that way is coming to a conversation with an agenda and being viewed as someone who comes to conversations with an agenda, even though I secretly do. Like I want to bring them Jesus, but I don't want to come off as artificial and like I had, you know, these ulterior motives with this friend instead of meeting them where they're at. So learning kind of that balance.
That line between I really care about you, so I think about what I bring to our conversations. Mm-hmm. Like I want to know you better and I want you to know me better and what matters to me. So I really think about how to say things and I really think about our conversations and I anticipate them. There's the line between that and as soon as someone feels like they're a project, like nobody wants to feel like somebody's project at all. So yeah. So in the fall, I try to ask the Lord, like, what are people hungry for? What are they looking for? And this idea of home just kind of erupted, probably through two things. One was I was on the phone with my dear friend, a pastor named Jonathan Miller.
Okay.
He's my wise mentor. He's the guy who literally had his hands on me when I got ordained. Like I was ordained to serve as an associate pastor in his church, and for all this time, we've remained in contact. He's retired now, and so I was on the phone with them, and he's such a kind, wise man, and I was talking to him about a relationship that I was in that was coming to a conflict point, and which is hard. I don't like. I'm so bad at conflictual relationships.
Yeah.
Like
hide,
deflect, run away. So yeah, it's hard for me, and it's always hard for me when something gets to that degree. And so I'm on the phone with Jonathan. Just man, I don't know what to do with this. And he said, Tim, just be as kind as you can. You'll never regret that, which is great advice. He's just always, like, he's such a generous person.
Sure.
He's the exact opposite of the people that ate at your table.
Yeah.
The first time we got in a car together, he opened up the what's that compartment between the driver and the passenger in the car, like the
glove compartment?
Yeah, that little box. It's full of loose money. Like not big bills, but like ones and fives and change and stuff. He pulls it open and there's, because we're paying a toll actually, but he pulls it open and then I'm looking at like, what is all this money doing?
Why is it loose?
And he said, I just chuck money in there. He said, and I leave my car unlocked. If you ever need some money, just come and grab some. I was like, awesome. But he's just such a generous man. So he said, be as kind as you can. You'll never regret that. And then he said, Tim, this might be relevant or it might not. It might just be silly, but this morning I saw this picture of Winnie the Pooh and Piglet.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, and it's this picture of Winnie the Pooh leading Piglet down a road, and actually it's used in a bunch of memes now. It's just this classic picture of their back of them. Winnie the Pooh has got Piglet by the hand. They're walking down the road, and he said, and underneath that picture it said, at the end of the day, we're all just trying to lead one another home.
Aw.
I was like, oh,
That's awesome.
I know. Like,
That's
yeah,
really
home.
sweet.
It just got me thinking about how we all need to be led home.
Mm-hmm.
We all need to get home.
Mm-hmm.
And then a friend recommended a book called On the Road with St. Augustine by James K.A. Smith, who's one of my favorite thinkers right now. And Augustine has been one of my favorite thinkers for a long, long time. And that's all about how we all feel like this. We all feel like we're searching for home. We're driving for something that we're missing. We're on the road. And he uses St. Augustine as this kind of partner to say, well, what was his life like? And he was on the road. He was searching for things. And do you know much about Augustine?
Yeah, I grew up in Catholic school.
Nice.
So they,
he was on the walls.
Yeah, they drilled him into us pretty hard.
Uncle Gus.
Uncle Gus. I love that.
Uncle
I'm going to start
Augie.
saying that. I have a friend named Augie, actually.
You do?
Yeah, after him.
Nice. After him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, he's a favorite as someone who studied the church fathers. He's a guy who knew what it was to long to finally make it home. This is, for those who don't know about him, this is way old. He was born in 354.
What?
Yeah, 354 was when he was born.
I thought you meant time. That's a year. You're saying 354 is a year?
Yeah.
I thought you were saying like 3:54.
At 3:54.
Like, why do you know that?
He was born at 3:54 a.m.
That's what I thought you were saying. That really took me back for a second. Woo. Okay. Go on. Sorry.
I mean, that's possible.
I digress. It is.
It is. Now, he was born to a Roman father who was not a Christian and a North African mother who was a Christian. And he had this life of pursuing academics. At the top of academics in that day was rhetoric, and that took him to Milan and to Rome. And he just was driving, and he went through a lot of philosophies that he tried on in his life, Stoicism and Manichaeanism and Neoplatonism, and he was like a ladies' man as a young man.
Right on.
Now, slow down. And when he was 31, he gave his life to the Lord. And so actually what happened was when he became a bishop, he knew that he had all this checkered past. And so he wrote this book called The Confessions, his Confessions.
Yep.
To sort of just, did you read it?
I haven't read it. I've read excerpts of it when
yeah.
I was in Denver Seminary, but it's going around my friend group. People are passing it around.
It's still a good read. Like some things you feel like that's too far away from me to make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
You read this and you're just like, that makes perfect sense. And the way he breaks down faith but he wrote it really to just say, look, I'm going to tell you guys everything that happened and how wrong I was. So you don't have to attack me as though, I should never be a bishop or a pastor because I've got this bad past. I'll tell you all about it. And this is what happened. And so he just laid it all out there. And it was one of his main theories is that whatever you love is going to compel you. Whatever you love the most, you're going to move toward, and you're going to become like that thing. And so whatever you love the most matters. And ultimately, he found, I've got to love Jesus the most. I've got to get to that place where my loves are in an order where Jesus is at the top. And when you do that, you start to get some kind of a sense of restoring home. We were at home with God in creation. Our relationship was perfect. Then we fell and we're broken, and it's through Christ that we find our way to get home again. So that just got me thinking that let's tell the whole story, the history of salvation, the gospel, under this theme of home, and see if we can find some ways to connect with other people.
Yeah, I think the word home can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. For example, when I say home, I bet you don't think of my brick house in Knoxville, Tennessee that I grew up in, K through 12. But, someone who's lived a life of abuse and neglect, the word home to them might make them shudder.
That's right.
A little bit. So I think the idea of leading someone home, their intended home, a home full of familiarity, of comfort, of love, of being a place where it's safe to be you.
Right.
is really the goal here, is what I'm hearing from you, because some people just don't know what it's like to have home and safety, and they do need to be led there. And everyone, each of us does, even if we grew up in, a healthy environment. If you ask me what the word home means, there's a lot of different meanings.
There's a lot of different meanings. Yeah. Like, what are you talking about? Because you reminisce or you get nostalgic about, I had I was a military family. I had a lot of, a few different houses I can imagine as a kid. If I say, oh, it's the house on Blue Mountain Way, or it's a house on Club Heights Drive, or maybe I think of my grandparents' house in Knoxville, 5515 Parker Drive, Knoxville, Tennessee.
Amazing.
I have all these memories, but nostalgia, even if I go back, when you go back to those places, have you ever done that? Like go back to like a childhood home, or maybe your parents still live in it.
They do.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Your mom still lives?
My dad lives in the old home. My mom.
Childhood home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's funny to see all the renovations that they do, because you're like, this isn't home anymore.
Yeah. You go back and it's missing. Like, you're like, oh, I want to go back to that home. And you go back there and it's missing. Or that nostalgic place, you go back there and it's not there anymore. It's missing. So there's something else. There's a home actually that we're longing for that is actually a place that we've probably, honestly, that we have not yet been. Like we have instilled in us as human beings a need to be home, and home is not going back to our hometown. Home is something that God has built into us that we're longing for, that's out there in front of us. It's I think it's C.S. Lewis who said it's an odor of a flower we have not yet smelled, or something like that.
That's vivid.
It's like, yeah, it's
very vivid.
But it's like a taste of something that, like, I know that when I taste that, I know that when I feel that, I know that when I experience that, I will be home.
Right.
But it's nothing that's here. And the thing is that everybody feels that. So, we're looking at some, outside thinkers too, because everybody says this is part of the human experience. It's part of the human condition. We all feel like we're not quite at home. Did you take philosophy?
No. Okay. I think it would make my brain explode.
Really?
Respectfully, I am just not a philosophical thinker. I never have been, and I deeply, deeply admire other people that are. Black and white, like, give it to me straight.
Give me something, yeah.
Right.
These big,
something clear cut,
floating kind of big ideas. Yeah, I love them.
I'm sure. Yeah, that's awesome.
I was always so psyched. I was like, really? That's how he sees the world, or that's how she sees the world, so
it's fascinating.
If they think that, then they're gonna naturally think that, and so for example, Karl Marx, father of communism, he was very in touch with not feeling at home. He called it alienation, and he said, you all feel alienation. You're alienated from your work, from your environment, from the people around you. You feel like there's a distance. You're not quite settled. His solution was communist revolution. Other people have other solutions.
Interesting choice.
Yeah, interesting choice. And the problem with that is that once you do a revolution, now you're at the top, and the people at the bottom want to do a revolution. But anyway, so he knew that was there. Sigmund Freud knew that it was there. He called it Unheimliche, meaning Gesundheit, meaning unhomedness, the feeling of not being at home. So as he psychologically was studying people, he said, we've all got this feeling like there's some kind of what is this? Why do we not feel at home? Albert Camus, the French existentialist, he talked about existential angst. We just don't feel like we're not settled. We're hungry for something. We can't figure out what it is. So everybody feels it. Everybody feels not at home, and they're trying to figure out a way to satisfy that need.
That's such a great way to articulate it, because I don't think a lot of people have put those feelings into words in that way. So, yeah, excited listeners. I hope you guys are enjoying the series thus far. And I know that I personally am learning a lot. I think you bring up C.S. Lewis a lot in the Screw Tape Letters and talking about just the ways that a good thing, home, for example, like my earthly view of home versus my heavenly view of home, the way that good things can be altered and twisted. Taking every good thing and just kind of changing it just a little.
Just a twist.
Skewing it from its intent. That has had me thinking a ton this week, and it's helped me form something in my mind where I'm realizing that a lot of this comes from discontentment and not feeling at home. So what can we do to kind of feel at home?
Yeah. I mean, that what you're saying is that, finding words for it, finding language for it, and finding language that other people can share. Like if you have a friend who's a psychology major, or a friend who's a philosophy major, or someone who's studied history, just finding some other language. So you're not just throwing the Christian speak at them.
Right.
But you're saying, have you ever felt like you're not totally at home? Or do you think that's something that human beings feel? Like there's something missing, there's a gap. And because I think, everybody feels it. And we're all running down this road. And what happens is when you're hungry and you're needy, you're also vulnerable.
Right.
And so the world is throwing promises at you just to get you to click here, to try this, to pay that, subscription, to buy that thing. I mean, and the pace just picks up like a ball rolling down the hill.
There's so much buy-in into all that stuff. And I guess my question is like, where's the buy-in for God?
Yeah.
Where's the buy-in for that feeling of home?
So you turn around to some of the Christian thinkers like C.S. Lewis, and so in our show notes I put this quote from C.S. Lewis: "If we find ourselves with a desire that nothing in this world can satisfy, the most probable explanation is that we were made for another world." And he goes on to kind of say, like, if you see a fish, that gives you a good indication that there must be some realm where this thing belongs. There must be an ocean. There must be a lake. And so we look in ourselves and say, I'm not satisfied. I feel alienated. I feel like something's missing. I feel like I'm missing home. He says, maybe there's a home for you that's yet to be. Maybe we actually were made to be at home with God, and that's still coming. Or you might have heard, this one is very well used. Blaise Pascal, the mathematician, philosopher, he wrote, "There's a God-shaped vacuum in the heart of each man, each person, which cannot be satisfied by any created thing, but only by God the Creator, made known through Jesus Christ." This is the famous God-shaped hole. You ever heard the?
I have.
And we've got this hole, we try to fill it with everything, just we're grabbing for anything. We want to satisfy this hole. We want to fill this, he calls it a vacuum, this ache, because it's not just a hole. It's like sucking.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's got to be something in there. So we're throwing stuff in there. The only thing that's going to fill that is God. Or Uncle Augie.
Our guy.
Uncle
Gus.
Our boy. He's going to be walking with us, I think, this whole time. He famously said, "You have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our hearts are restless until they rest in you." And that's just like, how you feel that?
That's one of my favorite quotes, actually. There's a song. It's by Audrey Assad, and it's just called Restless, and she sings, "Restless until I rest in you." Yeah. And I think in times of hardship or anxiety, I go back to that song, really, and I'll listen to it under my pillow while I'm trying to go to bed, because that's the truth, is we can't find rest until we, I guess, kind of give ourselves or allow ourselves to rest in the one who can give us true rest.
Amen. And here's the thing, right? For us on the Light and Life podcast, for our Light and Life for the City Church, I want us to be the people who have compassion and mercy and love for our fellow man, our fellow woman that cannot find rest in this world and need to find home. And they need new ways to hear the good news that the Lord is the one who leads us home.
That's beautifully worded. I'm so excited to be on this journey with you, Tim. Thank you for your time. I think that about wraps it up. So, listeners, if you're enjoying these conversations on faith and life, please leave us a review so that more people can find this podcast. And we'd love for you to join with us in the conversation. So if there's a topic that you'd like to discuss, send an email to podcasts@firstprescos.org. That's podcasts@firstprescos.org. Or if you're watching the video version on YouTube, leave a comment below. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode when we discuss work that matters. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.